Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dawn, as Trevor said, and supported by Chris. Our colleague Artemis is really the expert on the mental modeling approach, but unfortunately, she couldn't be here today. So why do we care about this issue? The issue of public confidence and trust in police is crucial to the British model of policing by consent, and citizens who are confident in the police are more likely to be satisfied, to cooperate with the police, and to get involved. And as I learned on a ride-along, crucially, they are more likely to provide the tips that support proactive policing. And studies, not for London, but in general, suggest that the relationship between improving trust and lowering crime rates is not as straightforward as one might think. In some cases, the trust declines despite lower crime rates. And also, we believe that to measure and improve public trust and confidence, we need to understand what it involves and what people think about it. So in order to do that, we've taken a twofold approach. So using the existing public attitude survey, we investigated how public confidence varies with demographics using the geodemographic technique, which Chris will explain later on. And we also looked at how to provide reliable neighborhood-level estimates and predictions using small area estimation. And then we also looked at gaining a deeper understanding of people's perceptions and expectations as their mental models in policing based on interviews. So I'll just turn you over to Chris.
Thank you. I want to quickly talk about geodemographics. It's been mentioned a few times today, so I'm not going to bang on about it, but geodemographics is based on the analysis of people by where they live, the idea being that similar people live in similar locations. Now, with the public attitude survey, which is obviously we've been also discussing today, that is based on a residential location of the interviewee. So we can try and link geodemographics with the public attitude survey to try and tell us something about confidence, general public attitude towards the Met Police. So this is the London output area classification, which Paul was talking about earlier, along with Alex. Now, this is based on the 2011 census data. And is based on the same methodology as a UK-wide classification that was created for the Office for National Statistics as an official output from the census. It was created in partnership with the Greater London Authority and creates a bespoke geodemographic view of London. As you can see from the map, it groups or it divides London up into 8 different clusters, as you can see from A to H there. And what we can do with this is we can then link it with the public attitude survey results over the temporal scale, and using a couple of examples which I'll show you now, how the perception varies over time according to one particular group, in this case the urban elites. And you can see that the confidence drivers that we saw earlier, how they vary over time when smoothed. Using, for example, the different measures. So obviously the confidence was shown earlier to be broken down into 5 key measures. So the yellow line at the bottom there, for example, is alleviating local antisocial behaviour for those at the back that might not be able to read the small text. And it just shows temporal variations in these measures over time for this one particular cluster. So that's in the top right corner, the ones that are a slightly whiter colour. They're the areas of the urban elites. And then if we contrast that with multi-ethnic suburbs, we see the temporal variations in public attitudes do vary over time, not just over the time, but also by these different cluster groups. And that just shows an inherent power of geodemographics, that we can summarise the population as complex and dynamic as London into 8 groups, and then we can just take those 8 groups and start comparing over time how attitudes, pretending the different indicators, how they vary over time. And moving beyond this, and more to the theme that Alex was talking about in the panel session earlier, about open data, about having transparency and open methods. So we have something, the London neighbourhood profiles. Here, as you can see, these neighbourhood profiles have been grouped together. Now, this is based on all open methods and open data. It's created GLA/MOPAC initiative that it uses data from the London Data Store, and it uses the methodology that was used for both the London output area classification, which I previously just showed you. And it shows the benefits of having open methods that anyone can go away and use. So in this case, it allowed for this classification to be created, and it kind of lent on the fact that in academia we'd created this methodology that had been used and sort of peer reviewed. So people that necessarily don't have the expertise to build a classification could latch onto this, use the expertise that we have in academia, and use it in a more commercial or more practical environment where they don't necessarily have to worry about the nitty-gritty bits of the methodology and just apply it to a particular field. So in this case, it's using data specific to London to try and profile the London's neighbourhoods. So you've got these 12 different clusters here. And this leads on to this, which you saw also a screenshot earlier, but this is using it slightly differently. So this is one of the 12 groups for London. As you can see, it takes this particular area, I believe, is single living centre, group 11. And what this has done is actually linked it with the public attitude survey, in this particular case, confidence levels. So what it's doing here on the map is you're seeing that the confidence levels for this one particular cluster have been mapped for different areas. And the variations, so the darker colours and the lighter colours, to show how variations within the same geodemographic cluster vary over space. So the idea of this being that I believe the darker colour have higher confidence and the lighter colours have lower confidence. So essentially we're saying these areas contain similar people, so why does confidence vary between these locations? Well, as we know, policing in London is not, you don't police London, you police boroughs and you police parts of boroughs. So obviously something is going on within the actual policing of these areas that is different. So this is actually used as a used in real life to actually see what variations in policing and why are these differences existing and what can we learn from the areas where the darker colours are that we can maybe apply to the lighter colours. So while this isn't necessarily linked directly to what I was previously showing on the slide before, it does however show the linkages between academia and policing to try and actually build something that can be actually used in a real environment. So that's basically a summary of what geodemographics can do for policing. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. So moving on to the second approach that we took using the existing survey data, which is small area estimation. So as we know and we heard before, local policing efforts are really what drive changes in public confidence. But the existing survey data is super sparse at the neighborhood level, around 33 or 34 people per borough per month, and then imagine for the smaller neighborhoods. So we need to get reliable neighborhood level intelligence in order for the local police to have information to use to plan. So because public confidence is correlated in space and time, we can use this characteristic to address the data sparsity with a Bayesian hierarchical approach. And this approach allows you to borrow information in space and time to allow you to get reliable estimates at the neighborhood level. So just a snapshot of some results, work in progress. So I've just shown estimates for 2 quarters and then predictions 2 quarters ahead. So, we can get reasonably good predictions for 1 quarter ahead or 2 quarters ahead using this methodology. And so we wanted to focus on the second part of our twofold approach, which is to get a deeper understanding of the public perceptions through a mental modeling approach. So first, we have to consider, are trust and confidence the same thing? No, they are not. And there is a bit of a theoretical confusion around the two concepts, but we are putting forward that trust is the most appropriate to talk about in this context, because confidence does not include the element of risk and the effective elements of trust, which are really crucial for policing. And additionally, trust is more mature philosophically, theoretically, and empirically as well. And there's a paper by Smith in the health context, which really sort of sets up our approach very nicely. And it looks at, it really evaluates the reason why trust is more important in the health context, because there's that element of care, and those who want to use the health service are in a situation where they must make a decision as to whether they will trust the doctors to provide the right care. And so just presenting our trust model, basically we are defining trust as the willingness of a truster to depend on the trustee, in this case the police, and that is within a specific context and within the presence of risk and uncertainty. And trust has both affective and cognitive dimensions. So there are touchy-feely aspects to trust, which which influence how much you trust the police. And so to improve trust and confidence in policing, we need to understand what are the trustee attributes that will influence the trusters' cognitive and affective trust perceptions. So what exactly are the public considering about the police when they evaluate whether or not they're going to trust them? So this is what we've been studying. So the mental model approach, we all have mental models in our mind, and they're ready-made constructions of knowledge which help us to make sense of the world. And so the mental modeling approach will help us to understand what people think about trust and policing, their gaps and their misconceptions, the vocabulary that they use so that we could effectively communicate with them, and their needs and expectations. So what did we do? We interviewed 5 experts at the police, and then we interviewed 25 non-experts. 10 were selected from the Barking and Dagenham police, and 5 were victims of crime in the Barking and Dagenham police. They've been very helpful with this. And then 10 random people in London, about half male, half female, different educational backgrounds, but mostly over 35 years old. So these word clouds just present the results when we ask the experts and the non-experts what did they mean by trust in policing above and confidence in policing below. And so right off the bat, you could see that the experts and non-experts did both mention confidence in their definition of trust. But we could also see a distinction between the way that the experts and non-experts considered it. So the experts valued honesty, whereas the non-experts valued helpfulness, and which is interesting to consider how easy is it for a member of the public to evaluate whether or not a police officer is honest, versus how easy it is for them to evaluate whether the police officer was helpful. Similarly, the police spoke a lot, experts spoke a lot about engagement, whereas the public spoke a lot about cooperation, which suggests that the public would like to become more involved and to go deeper than just engaging with the police. So I'll just present to you some highlights of the confidence model. The full model will be in a paper that's forthcoming. So this is just highlights, just to get the really gist of what we're saying. So we asked the experts and the non-experts, what were your concerns with respect to trust in the police? And so there were 4 main areas of consensus. There were issues regarding the police themselves, regarding crime, regarding the media, and regarding the characteristics of the people, the public. So these are the areas that the public and the police agreed on and used the same terminology for. So they were concerned about mistakes the police make, their ability to follow up, reduction of lack of communication. They also agreed that people's perceptions and misconceptions of the police affect how much they trust or they don't trust, and also, personal interactions, as the chief superintendent mentioned, the personal experiences of others affect their trust and confidence. So additionally, the experts and non-experts agreed on these things, but used different terminology. So the police preferred to say look smart, whereas the public preferred to say professional. And the police used visibility, whereas the public used presence. And so the ones in red are the items that the public identified, but the police did not identify. So the public they speak a lot of that affective element. The public would like the police to be more caring. They would like the police to speak more to the children in the community and to interact with them. The public also were concerned about accountability and, wanting to have a code of conduct for the police. And also there was the apocryphal stories as well, and the influence of negative media stories was mentioned by both non-experts and experts. So what does this mean going forward? We're recommending perhaps standardizing police and public interactions to address the specific trustee attributes, the looking, professional, and the ethics of care, explaining to the public what the police do and what they don't do. And from what we've seen, the police are doing such a great job in tackling this issue, but a lot of the members of the public don't have any idea of the work. One of the persons I interviewed actually said, I didn't realize the police cared about what I thought. So communicating success stories via all media forms is also an important thing. And being more caring will help to build effective trust. And talking to women, children, and young people more as well. And so the more people interact with their police, the more trust is improved, which is why the BBC documentary was such a good thing because it allowed people to see exactly what goes into policing on a day-to-day basis, and also engagement activities that engage emotion will really improve trust. So from a documentary such as that, it's easy for a member of the public to put themselves into the shoes of the police. Similarly, things like ride-along schemes are really good for building effective trust because you feel like you're another boot on the ground and you could really understand what the police go through. And so I'd just like to close with a quote from a very, very wise expert that we interviewed who may or may not be in the room today. I don't in any way, shape or form accept any theory that says if we only told the public more about what we did or explain things better, they would trust us better or have confidence in us. Because that feels to me, as we are saying, we know better than the public. And we don't know better than the public as the public knows better than we do in terms of what they need. So, thank you.
Hello, thanks very much for your talk. My name's Ruth Swetnam. I'm from Staffordshire University in Stoke-on-Trent. I'm just wondering, is your interview data, is that a pilot study that you've been doing? Yeah, because
yes,
the numbers seem very low to me, and I just wanted to caution you against drawing too many conclusions when you've spoken to so few people, effectively.
Yes. Well, in the mental modeling approach literature, this is actually a number that's suggested as robust, but yes, it is a very small sample, and we hope for more funding so that we can continue research into this topic.
Have you thought about using social media and online surveys to perhaps unpick what you've been doing? Now you've got some really good, rich information out of your face-to-face interviews, you probably could scale that up quite significantly by perhaps using some online surveys and things like that.
Yes, that's a really great suggestion. We actually are still in the process of analysing all our interview results, and one of the questions that we asked the public was, how would you like the police to communicate with you, and how would you like to share your opinions of the police? And lots of people mentioned internet surveys and the like, so that's an excellent suggestion. Thank you.
So the question I had was about the geographical analysis of the public attitude survey data. Are you able to say how much influence does the nature of the area have versus the way the area is policed in terms of establishing the level of public confidence? Are you able to give some kind of idea of how much impact can the way that we police an area have on public confidence to affect the level that an area will have based on its demographics?
This is future work. I'm currently in the process of adding that covariate of the police traces and stuff to my model. So I know it's future work, everybody could jump in, but future work is a very interesting and important question. So something that we are going to look at very shortly.
Any final questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.